Victoria Mriya is an author, teacher, interpreter, and mom. She lives in Los Angeles with her two kids. Victoria was born in Ukraine and grew up in both Ukraine and America. She was recently faced with the challenges of helping family escape the war. She's also raised an awareness and support for war effort. And on today's episode of our interview, it's my utmost pleasure and joy to have Victoria on the show today. Welcome on the show, Victoria.
Thank you so much, Peter. Thank you for inviting me to come to your show.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. I'm excited to have you on today. Quite interesting. Now, Victoria, could you tell us about your book, Rosalana Roshnik, A Brave Ukrainian Girl's Journey? How does this book come about? What inspired you to write it?
Of course, yes. Interestingly enough, the inspiration for the story came from a dream that I had. So
Wow.
it had been several months since the war had started, and of course, all of my thoughts were encompassed by the current events, and
Mm,
probably a lot of you. But this dream in particular was very vivid. I woke up from this dream thinking of this little girl who was stuck in an underground metro station, and she
wow.
was helping another injured person close by
Mm,
with her special rushnik, is what it's called. It's a traditional cloth or towel of sorts that's embroidered, and she was
mm,
using it to wrap a wounded person's arm. Um, so it was inspired from a dream that I had,
mm.
just thinking about all of the family members that I had that were in Ukraine. My parents were actually currently there, so helping
Wow.
them escape the war. My grandmother was there; she's still there. A lot of family members are still. So, yeah, just inspiration came from the stories that I heard along the dream. I've also been asked to speak at a couple of different events to speak about my family's experience with the war. And then, um, when the war started, everybody's like, "Oh, you're Ukrainian. What, don't you have family in Ukraine?" You become kind of a
Mm,
go
yeah,
current events. And I realized there's so much need and so much interest in spreading awareness about Ukraine in general. A lot of people
yeah,
didn't know what language do you speak in Ukraine? It's all of a sudden this country that we didn't know a lot about was brought to the forefront on the news.
wow.
And there's a lot of interest about it.
Wow, I love the fact that these happenings actually inspired you to write this book. Sounds very amazing to me. And I've had other books too, and other authors come on my show, write a book inspired by what happened in Ukraine, some in terms of memoir, some in terms of fiction, and a combination of both fiction and non-fiction. So it's quite amazing to hear this from you too. And now I would also love to ask you, for readers who haven't read the book yet, and without giving much information away, could we have a sneak of what I'd expect in terms of teams? Speaking of Rosolana Roshnik.
Of course, yes. I have the book right here. Um, this is the book, and
Beautiful.
the story about a little girl named Roxolana. She's the main character of the story. She's
Mm,
about school aged, and one day, as she's getting ready to go to school, her entire life changes. She's upgraded. She's having to find safety. And as she navigates the war, she sees examples of courage and kindness from various people. She learns kindness and how to be brave herself. She goes through emotions of fear and gratitude and
mm,
surprise. And yeah, the book is just a story. I try to keep it child appropriate as much as possible. So it's just a story about some Ukrainian general information as well. I have words that are Ukrainian a little bit through here. And then at the end, there's also a glossary of the words that you might encounter, like Tato is dad or Baba is grandma. There's also a little map
yeah.
of history of Ukraine, which we all have kind of learned to know what that looks like now with the blue and yellow. But it's also very accurate in terms of geography with the mountains on the west
Mm,
and the sun out and the river Dnieper flowing through. And this is kind of the uh, journey she takes through the country. and out of the country eventually to find safety.
Wow, wow, that's quite amazing to know. That's so amazing to know. I love the sound of this book. Sounds very amazing to me. And now, seeing that Rosalona Roshnik is a children's adventure story, I'd love to ask you what piqued your interest in writing under the themes of children literature? Why do you want to do it this way, particularly?
Yes, I actually love adventure children's books. I was an educator for preschool and young years myself. I was a homeschool mom
Oh,
for my kids. Yeah, so we did a lot of reading, a lot of children's adventure books that we read. And I love the idea of bringing awareness and inspiring children through literature. I think that's
yeah.
one of the best ways to teach children is using literature. So I was excited to write my own book with that in mind. I
Wow.
also was really just had a lot of compassion for all the children that were in Ukraine that were had been experiencing, all
Mm,
the effects of the war. My own cousin and her three kids early on in the war, they decided to escape. So they went from different parts of Ukraine to several different countries in Europe, and then in Mexico in a refugee camp for several days with three young children. One was under the age of 2. And just
wow.
having to, put myself in those shoes was just really heartbreaking. The fact that these
Mm,
kids, a lot of them went from distance learning for COVID, right? Then to no school at all because of the war. And then
wow.
being displaced in a different country, uh, learning in a classroom environment that's not your own, not your language a lot of times. So yeah, I was really inspired to help these children feel like, they're seen and we can kind of understand what they're going through.
Wow. Wow, that's quite amazing to know, really. I love your take on this book. I love the sound of it. Sounds very pulling and quite interesting to me. And now, apart from Rosalana's Roshnik, do you have any other works you've authored or maybe currently working on?
I don't know. That's my only.
Oh,
However, my son would really love for me to write a book about a little boy and jets and fighter pilots. So if there is another children's book work, that'll be probably that. I'm just waiting for a dream.
that would be fun, really. That would be fun and great to do. That would really be
Yes.
fun and great to do. Yeah. So I look forward to an amazing time with that. Now, could you tell us what publishing is like for a published author like yourself? Are there any challenges you've encountered ever since you got published? And I love you to answer this question based on the fact that you write under the themes of children's literature.
In terms of publishing, I was lucky not to have many challenges because I chose the self-publishing route quite instantly. I knew that I
Wow.
wanted to self-publish because then I could choose my illustrator. So, and it was very important for me to choose my own illustrator because the girl that I had in mind is a friend of mine and she's Ukrainian and she'd been through all of
Oh.
it. She has her own story to tell, which I can share later. So it was really important for me to choose my own illustrator. And the self publishing route was really an adventure. It was a learning curve because I'd never done anything like that before, but I was
Hmm.
fortunate, a lot of support from friends who were willing to help. And it was a fun adventure for me,
Hmm.
um, the publishing part. Yeah.
Wow. That's quite great. Thank you so much for sharing about your publishing route. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. Now, Victoria, is there anything that you would love to share with the viewers about your book that we did not mention or talk about in this interview and you'd love the viewers to know?
Yes, I would love to share a couple of different things.
That'd be great.
The first thing is I would like to share about my illustrator. Her name is Anastasia, and
Oh,
she is the one who drew the pictures here. She's a very gifted artist and musician as well, and she is in a
wow.
wheelchair. So she was dealing with rheumatoid arthritis early in her childhood,
Mm,
which had um, changed the shape of all her joints in her body. So there's a little story here within the story of her life, a
Wow.
little biography of Anastasia, and it resonates very much with Roxalana's story too, and the fact that they're resilient, they overcome obstacles to do good and
Mm.
to bless people around them. And so you'll only find this in the paper copy, not in the Kindle version.
Wow.
So I wanted to share that about my illustrator, and also let your listeners know that all of the proceeds from the book have gone to people in Ukraine who have
Wow. Wow.
suffered.
Wow, that's an amazing thing to do. That's really amazing. That's quite amazing to know. And now I would love you to read a section of the book, but we're coming back to that. Before then, as a published author, what sort of advice do you offer other writers who are still struggling with, publishing or writing a book? What would you advise people in this category?
Of course. I would advise to find a good support system, maybe a
Mm,
couple friends you can bounce ideas off of or ask for
absolutely.
advice, give you some constructive criticism.
Yeah.
I was really fortunate to have a friend. Her name is Jessica Shad-Manuel, and she is
Mm,
a professor of literature. She also has
wow.
a great little it's like a worldwide book club, I guess you could call it, called
Oh,
Book Oblivion, where she discusses various books with people from all over the world. So she was
interesting.
a huge resource to me for the book. She, did the editing and really helped me navigate some of the parts of writing the book. So yeah, I
Wow.
would just recommend finding people who maybe they're not professors of literature, but somebody who can support you through the process. And
Yeah,
then
that's amazing.
your research, I guess, on which route you want to take, because there's so many different ways now that you can publish a book. You can go
Yeah,
through Amazon, through other self-publishing ways, and then also, obviously the traditional publishing
yeah,
route. It's just and then to whichever way you take, just really uh, makes the course of your book journey different. Mhm.
absolutely. Wow, that's amazing. I'm so excited to know, you got this help from these literary persons. Yeah, that's an amazing thing to do. And
I'm
now, would
sure
you
you
like,
would love interacting with her.
oh, wow, interesting, really. Love the sound of it. And now, Victoria, would you like to read a short section of the book? It could be a favorite line, a paragraph,
Sure.
or a page. That will be fine.
Yes, I'd love to. Thank you. I'll read the ending. I'll read towards the end where at the end of the book, uh, we can see a shift in Roxalana's thinking, and she goes from being scared to providing courage for her own mom, and
Mm,
good to finding ways to do good to others, and finding kindness in the world. So it says, the other countries may not come to help, but there are millions of kind-hearted people in this world
mm.
doing everything they can for us. We have to protect them from the evil man. Our Ukrainians will stop him, and we will go home. We will see the sunflowers bloom again, and the chestnut trees line the busy streets of our beautiful city. So it just ends in a note of hope.
Wow. That's interesting, really. I love the sound of your book. And yeah, I'm hopeful that viewers would love to pick it up. And now, in case we have some interested viewers who are watching this interview, I would love to get a copy of the book. On what platform is it available on for purchase?
They can get it on Amazon. It's sold on Amazon. It's a Prime. There's also the Kindle version.
Yeah.
In the Kindle version, you won't get the story about my illustrator.
Yeah, please, could you
There's
leave the book to the camera again while you continue? Yeah,
there's
just so.
also I've seen it sold. It's also sold on Barnes and Noble and just some other little sites here in like Thrifty Books, eBay, probably
Yeah.
resale. So you're welcome to purchase it from any of those online, or if you'd like to get it from Amazon, then the proceeds would go to me and the people in Ukraine.
Yeah, that's great. And I left a link in the discussion part of this interview where interested viewers can get a copy of Victoria's books directly on Amazon, on Barnes& and Nobles, on Thrift, and also on other platforms. So thank you so much, Victoria, for accepting the invitation to be featured on P English Literature. It's awesome having this conversation with you.
Thank you so much for inviting me and for speaking with me. That was a
Yeah, the pleasure is mine too.